Okay, carrying on with summertime, I'm going to try to do something here. I'm going to try to play the rhythm track from the recording I made last time and spoke the words. I'm going to try and play that as a background and actually play the melody on the guitar, the melody that I tabbed out for you, and give you that to practice along with before we start talking about um, how one could improvise over this particular tune. So I'm going to play pick up this tape, this video here, and hopefully this will be loud enough, nice and slow, and you won't be playing here. See how this comes out. Back. So when we go back, okay, so we'll find out in a couple of minutes when I listen to that if that actually worked. If it didn't, I'll probably leave it there anyway, because you can at least practice playing along with my melody playing, but I have high hopes that that background was loud enough for you to play along with. The other thing, remember when you're playing along with these videos, always try to have the video at a loud enough volume so that it can actually serve as a guide and keep you on track. So usually what that means is keeping the video that you're listening to just a slight bit louder than you are, and more or less think of yourself as part of that group, and that you're trying to make your playing fit with what you are hearing. You're not trying to make what you're hearing fit with what you're playing, because obviously what you're listening to is not flexible. That's a recording and that's not going to change. Your playing, however, is flexible. So that's why you've got to, try to make what you're doing fit with that. Now let's talk a little bit about improvising over this. Now, Summertime is basically, it's kind of a bluesy tune. I think of Summertime as a bluesy tune. And we have the rhythm at the beginning, the E minor to the B7 to the G. We have that going on. Okay, so the tonality there is E minor. Even though we're going to the B7 in between, we keep coming back. Remember, we talked about this G chord being a very close relative of the E minor. So you can actually think of it as going from E minor to B7 to E minor to B7 to E minor, back and forth like that. So E minor is the main tonality there, and because the B7 keeps returning to the E minor, that's where our ear is going. And improvisation has a lot to do with what your ear is anticipating is going to happen. So a very common E minor type riff, and I'm not going to tab this out. I'm going to let you tab it if you want because it's pretty basic. It's, you know, the open G, the G on the 3rd fret to the open E, D on the 3rd fret of the B string, open B, B flat on the 3rd fret of the G string, to the A on the 2nd fret, to the open G, and finally down to the E that's on the 2nd fret of the D string. And if we wanted to expand a little further on that, we could play the open D. So I'm going to play those notes again. We have the G, the E, the D, the B flat, the A, the open G, and then the E on the D string. And then if we want, we'll add the open D back to the E. So what that's going to create over these chords is a bluesy type sound, because you're going to have some blue notes in there that are going to conflict with the notes in the chords. I'll give you the most obvious example is going to be the B flat note on the 3rd fret of the G string, because when you're playing any of these chords, the E minor, the B7, or the G, you're going to have a regular B note in those chords. So obviously when you're playing a B flat as part of your improvisation, it's going to clash with that B that's in those chords. You're going to get this. You can hear how dissonant that is. But that dissonance is exactly what the blues is about. It's creating that tension and making that tension last as long as you want. Some blues players, some improvisers would really take advantage of that tension and keep playing that B flat. But the thing is, ultimately, after they're done playing that B flat, they're going to resolve it somehow to an E or to one of the other notes that are in the chord. They may even resolve it up to the B. And the other way that they may do that is they may not go from the 3rd fret of the G string to the open B. They may go from the 3rd fret of the G string. They may just move that up to the 4th fret. See, that's also the B note. So they could go like that, or to the open B, and then down A, G, E, like that, something like that. So the point though is that this B flat creates a lot of tension and a lot of dissonance. But once again, that is the essence of what makes the blues sound like the blues. So while these chords are being played, okay, I played a lot of B flats, but you notice I created that tension, but then I released that tension. That whole idea, I think we've talked about that before, the idea of tension and release. So you create the tension with that B flat note, you release it by going to the B. And that's probably one of the strongest releases of the tension, because that B note is in all of these chords. Even though we're not actually playing it in that G chord, it is part of the G chord. So if you were to play that, you're going to have that effect. That is the most, like I said, the most glaring example of creating tension in that situation. The other note, another example would be this G note, okay? Because that G note is not in this B7. So you notice what I did there is I kind of slid up to that G. That's kind of a cooler way of doing it rather than just playing the G like this. I slid up to it. So the way I'm accomplishing that is I'm playing this F sharp, but immediately sliding up to that G. Once again, keep in mind all the notes that we're talking about here. I'll repeat them again. The G, so tab these out. The G, the E, the D, the B, the B flat, the A, the G, the E. You can throw the D in there and back to the E. So practice going over those notes. Okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this by just vamping on the first set of chords, which is the E minor to the B7 to the G or inverted E minor, however you want to think of it. And then I'll make another video and I'll use this as background for that. So about here, and then what I'll do is I'll improvise using that that idea that we just got done talking about. I'll give you some examples. So we'll do it about here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just going to keep playing this. Switch to the A minor. So even now, before I give you some examples of ways to approach the improvisation there, with what I just played, if you want to mess around with those notes and just kind of play over that and discover what ideas worked for you and where you hear the tension, certain notes once again in conflict with the chords. But when you hear that, realize that that tension is often what you're looking for, and some players use it to a greater degree than others. That's what makes improvisation beautiful. It's your own thing. There is no right or wrong. As long as you're playing what you want to play and you have an idea as to what you want to play, that's good enough. It qualifies as improvisation. As long as you're, like I said, you have an idea what you're doing and your head is kind of into what it is that you're playing. We'll talk about that a little bit more in the next video.